In this video, I'm going to show you guys how I beat the Retracing Our Steps event by using Carlin or Kjerag Operators. And I'm making this video because it is pretty doable. Now first off, this is going to be the squad composition for this run. I'm going to be using both versions of Silver Ash and Premnix, even though I would use the Alter versions more. And I won't just forget the little sister Cliffheart, along with Genosis, and then Mommy Breacher, and Career, and Matterhorn. And there's going to be the new operator, which is Snow Hunter. She's actually pretty good for Hunter Sniper. And lastly, the two Rogue Islanders, which is Aurora and Stewart. Now you might notice that Chera is missing, and I intended it because she's going to be the boss for this event. But enough of that, let's get right into the run. Alright, so for the first stage, I first deployed Rainfrost with his S2 skill in the ready. I'm going to tell you right now that it is very reliable. If you already have him, I recommend to M3 that first when you have enough resources. Then after I deployed Career, you can see Rainfrost S2 in effect. Basically everyone can swing now. Now later I deployed Cliffheart to block the bottom lane to hold off these fluffy snowball enemies that will consume these snowy teddy bears, to which it will turn to an actual snowball. I kind of find it cute. Since I knew Cliffheart can handle the snowballs alone, I deployed Stewart to assist her, and then I won't use stronger ops yet since this is the first stage and all. Now I find myself in quite a pickle when I saw a dozen of these teddy bears showing up, but I realized I don't need to worry because they are there to show the event's mechanic, the avalanche. They were kind enough to walk up to the section and help me complete the stage. It's going to be a recurring theme this run. Stage 2 is going to be a little interesting, because I'm just going to use the original Silver Ash and Premnix. Since there's only one lane to hold, I'm going to put Silver Ash with his S1 near the blue box and Premnix beside him for range support. I could have gone just the two of them, but I was also worried about Premnix since she is pretty vulnerable, so I deployed Matterhorn to block and tank the hits from the ranged enemies. Now speaking of which, set enemies are these snow chickens that are carrying these eggs. Now what they do is that if they got hit by the avalanche, their eggs would break and they'll become faster and unblockable, I think. Luckily, I don't even need to use the avalanche to my advantage since all I need to do is just wait and let the enemies get taken out. Honestly, I find this stage way easier than the first one if you want to use less operators. This is another simple stage that I don't need the full roster of my ops. All I need is just Rainfrost and Perita. Now Rainfrost is just gonna lane hold the only path to the blue box, while Perita will take care of the rest with her S2. Now there's these new enemies which I'll call them turtles. They're pretty tanky, but they can be very vulnerable to the avalanches. And I rarely have to do anything since they can just flip themselves over, and I can finish them with the device mode that fills up the avalanche meter. Now I never used phalanx casters before, but I think that Perita is the most broken out of all. Perita creates these ice tiles that would slow and do chip damage to any enemies that walk across it. And I'm not sure if this is her S2 or all her skills, but it constantly expands until it could fill up the entire stage. Heck, it can also turn the blue box to a blockable unit, preventing any enemies to enter. Like, it's just so insane. I swear they're making these release stages pretty simple. Now for this stage, I only use two operators. One is Career to get the DP moving, and the other is Mommy Deacon Breacher. I specifically picked her for this stage because we be fighting the bloody Victorian just like in the last Kjerag event, and we know how she had dealt. This stage is just laughably easy, because all I need to do is just focus on the top lane, while the bottom lane, these enemies just commit die with the avalanche device. You don't even need higher rarity troops for this. Heck, it's probably doable by using 1-star units too. Although I did have to intervene at the bottom lane by placing the device to accelerate the avalanche because the enemies weren't enough to activate it. But all in all, she successfully defeated the Victorians once again. Now the fifth stage was a little tricky at first. The avalanche covered 90% of the range tiles, so I had to be careful. Now after deploying Silver Ash, I went to the remaining range tiles at the top right and deployed Genosis to take care of these icy bad enemies. And I helped them by deploying the new Kjerag Operator Snow Hunter. Now yes, she is a 5-star Hunter Sniper, but she's actually pretty reliable. I know I like Cold Shot more, but in terms of practicality, Snow Hunter is the way to go. But after I deployed Aurora to help out Rainfrost holding the lane, all I need to do now is to take out all the enemies, particularly the snowbats since they could screw up with the avalanche system. Normally, I would risk the Kjerag ops for getting too close to any ranged enemies, but thankfully, they are powered by Rainfrost's talent, which applies passive healing to any Kjerag or Karlan operators. And because of that, Snowhunter and Genosis would stay alive for the duration of the stage. I say this is such a game changer for Arknight players since they have no medic, not even a healing defender too. So having a healing unit is like pretty reliable for them. And with one chicken left taken care of by Aurora, we move on to the next stage. This stage introduced us to these snow elks or mooses, and they're pretty tough. But they're not as tough as Mommy though. So after I deployed Rainfrost near the enemy spawn of the ice teddies, I placed the Gimrecker next to him. Now I waited until the elk reached her crosshair, and when it did, I activated her skill and let her cheese through the elk like butter. I had to let a second elk pass because Degen's skill wasn't ready, and finally did, I quickly activated again to take out the third elk passing by along with the lead. I could have put another operator, but I was being a little cocky. The elks managed to activate the avalanche system and force Mommy to be pushed back, but she's still standing. Now this moment I got very cocky because I wanted to wait for Degen's skill to be ready so she can take care of both the elk and the teddies. I wanted to do it with just 2 ops, hence why I still haven't placed any melee units, and just when this little teddy was going out of her range, Degen's skill 3 was ready and I pulled that sucker right towards her. Then I have another issue. This final elk. He was getting very close to Degenbreaker and her skill wasn't ready yet. Now these elks will push any bot units and I'm worried for her that she might get pushed into this hole. So I realized I couldn't be cocky anymore and placed in Steward to the left. And thanks to Rainfrost's skill, he double shrinked the elk until it died, saving our goat arm. Before that, I would like to apologize because this footage is going to be very laggy. Because this stage has over 100 enemies and all of them are going to walk out to this avalanche system. First, it's going to be the teddies, which almost all of them would die. But then these snowball cats are next to activate the system. Most of them survive, so I deployed in Rainfrost to try and take care of them. And then Perita at the right side, away from the system. And I had to help up Rainfrost with career when I almost choked it. Now it leaves us with these new enemies, which are these mushrooms. They are a big problem for me because they will block off any avalanche from whatever direction it is. At this point, the right side, which the majority of the enemies here won't be affected, hence why they need to be dealt with. To do that, I deployed Degenbreaker and she easily cheesed them, and I had to retreat her because she's gonna get hit by the avalanche. Now what you see here is a lag fest from my phone. All these damn cats that appear just casually frame robs my device, and if I hadn't taken care of those shrooms, Rainfrost and Career would have been overwhelmed. When I saw that the second shrooms were coming, I timed it perfectly by using the avalanche device to take care of the fallen turbos, but also do heavy damage to the shrooms before they even activate their shield ability. So I just used Steward with the Swing ability and took care of them. The last wave of enemies wasn't that big of a deal, I just had to wait for them to activate the system and then I used the device to activate it again. And that marks the end of that lag phase. Well, for this stage. Now the H stage has nothing new to offer. Having to guard 2 lanes, I deployed Rainfrost at the top while Perita takes care of the folks at the bottom. And just to make sure the 2 are safe, I deployed Snowhunter to assist Perita and Genosis to assist Rainfrost. More accurate dynamic, by the way. But yeah, that's about all I got for this stage. Perita took care of the horde at the bottom lane with ease, Snowhunter making sure there are no leaks, and Genosis helping out Rainfrost against the elk with his arts. I guess this is what it feels to have such heavy units. Just like the last stage, this one is kind of simple. Seeing that there's a gap between these 2 avalanche systems, I deployed both Rainfrost and Perita at that said gap. I thought I was just gonna sit this one out, but the system just summoned the 2 new enemies. The dreaded Ispit, which were also easy to deal with. I just need to use the device to activate the avalanche, which dealt true damage to these Ispits and made them lose half of their health. I also apologize for the frame drop in this footage, it's a pain to record all these in mobile. But anyways, the Isbits were quickly dealt with and I continued sitting back as the siblings tear everything apart. And when these 3 shrooms show up, I decided to get Clifford to join in the fun. I also deployed Steward for good measure because of the swing, Clifford and Steward were able to take out all these 3 shrooms with ease. Now with this stage done, the roads are clear for the Kjeragians to fight their own goddess. Now you notice that I record this one in auto because I don't want to waste a lot of time redoing it manually. And also apologies for the laggy footage again. Nonetheless, I started up deploying Rainfrost to hold off the teddies in his lane, but most importantly to protect Pramanix from Kjerag. I forgot what her abilities are on the stage, but all I know she's gonna help us a lot on defeating the goddess. Then I sent both Genosis and my own Primanex in front of the boss so they can take care of the bats, and also Degenbreaker for DPS. Now the first section of the stage is protecting Primanex until she reaches here, which changes the camera's position to the right side, though Silver Ash had to be retreated. But on the bright side, I don't have to wait long and I can redeploy him again. I later deployed the original Silver Ash for this S-tube at the right side to lane hold the enemies coming there. Well, I just had to focus on taking out these bats before they could reach the avalanche zone where the trio resided. Now there are these 3 turtles above, but luckily I was able to stall them by using Matterhorn. With his high health, 4 block, and getting healed by Rainfrost, he was able to withstand all the attacks for a long time. I could have just waited for Primanex's 3rd skill to activate after her own self finished draining Kjerag's health, but there was just too many bats that I had to activate it. Luckily, it was in time for the boss to reach its 3rd form. After waiting for a moment for Kjerag's invulnerability to disappear, I act fast by activating Degen skill. Again, I am very sorry for the viewing experience because of this massive frame drop. There are just too many enemies arriving at once. Speaking of which, I had to deal with the teddies and snowballs from each side. The teddies I could handle because they're just gonna off themselves by the avalanche, but the snowballs can be an issue, especially when Matterhorn and Rainfrost are still dealing with the turtles. So I tried to thin their health by using any units that Rainfrost gave his Swing ability to. This damn frame rot was so bad during the playthrough that I haven't noticed that Degen got eliminated from the avalanche because I put Stewart there. Luckily my Primanex was still active and I think he's enough to take on the boss. Now, and after a minute or two of grueling frame drops and lag in this damn footage, the boss is finally defeated. While seeing these turtles getting mocked by the Kjeragians, I really want Ishi to make that PC client for Arknights soon, so that whenever I record, the footage doesn't lag often. Okay, so that was me clearing the Retracing Our Steps story event with only using Kjerag Operators. This is the first time I made a video like this rather than the dub showcases I tend to upload. I'm also thinking of doing this again, but with other side story events and other niche squads. I am planning to do Break the Ice version with only Kjerag Ops too. Have a good day, everyone!